Good evening. I'm Mark Berry. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation. Thank you for coming out this evening. This is a project that has been going on for over a year now. Yes, and we've taken a lot of input from different organizations, and Kent and Frost, who are doing the design work, have come up with a plan that we feel meets the current needs of all the different organizations in town, youth sports, high school, and adult sports also. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Chad so that he can go through the presentation, and if you've got any questions, just fire away.
Thanks, Mark. So good evening again. My name is Chad Frost with Kent Frost Landscape Architecture. Happy to be here. Thanks for coming up. So tonight, what I will do is try to maybe abbreviate it a little bit because of who's here and who's seen this before. But this is the quick outline. I was going to run through the public input results, so what we've heard from the public so far and how we've incorporated that, run through the updated plans, run through the cost estimates. Last time we did not have cost estimates, we now do, and I want your feedback on those cost estimates, and then that's when we take your input at the end. So quickly, back in September, we had a meeting just like this. We've summarized all those results and presented them back to the committee. Excuse me. So I was going to quickly go through them. We had 44 people in attendance that evening. The first question that we asked was field surface preference. And so what field surfaces did the people want after we went through the whole presentation? The first two here are Clodchester. The purple color is synthetic. The green color is natural turf field. What I found interesting for Clodchester, we have the two fields proposed there. 50% of the people there wanted natural, and 50% of the people wanted at least one synthetic field. When we broke those out by the actual total number of fields, since there's two fields there were 37 votes for natural and 23 for synthetic. But the fact that 50% of the people wanted at least one of the fields synthetic was news to us, which was good to get back. Fitch Stadium field was very obvious. The majority wanted synthetic. The Fitch new multi-use field was very obvious. The majority wanted synthetic. And then the Fitch practice field wanted to be left as natural turf. We had done the presentation about concerns that some people have with synthetic turf. So we asked that question. Question two is, do you have any concerns on the field from a safety perspective? I've summarized them here, but basically no, but green infill, which we've talked about, instead of the crumb rubber, using a coconut or a bio type infill. Ensure proper drainage, ensure proper maintenance. There was a question about infections from the turf, which we did talk about. Because the turf is synthetic and it's plastic, it's not organic, so biologics don't break down on it. You actually have to clean it. It's part of the maintenance program. So again, proper maintenance, that's not a problem. Concerns about disposal, which we talked about. The concern from one individual or two individuals about health and environmental concerns, which we also had covered. And then obviously the cost as well. We then asked for everybody to rank their order of importance. And this is lovely spread of data. What I wanted to show here was the Fitch Stadium, 23 people. So 1 was the highest, 9 was the lowest from an order of importance. The Fitch Stadium field got 23 respondents of that's the most important field to handle first. Everything else looks like a really bad Sudoku puzzle until we run it through some graphing and work it out, because we have 9 different fields to rank of different importance. Everybody put it differently. When we do that graduated ranking, what we come up with was the Fitch Field Stadium was number 1, the Fitch multi-use field was number 2, Clodchester 1 was 3, then the Fitch practice field, then Fitch softball, then Clodchester 2, then the Clodchester youth field, that leftover space, then Sutton baseball, and then Sutton softball. So that was interesting to us, on how the public that were here ranked that. We kind of predicted some of the Fitch stuff. As you can see, kind of Fitch practice, softball, and Clodchester were kind of in the middle together. and then the youth field and Sutton as the lowest was shocking, I guess, on some level. Absolutely.
So this was just based on who attended?
Just the people in attendance at the last meeting.
From baseball showed up and voted, then that was
Correct.
representing properly.
Correct. Correct. That's just what we got from the people that were here, the 44 people that voted last time. Yep.
So the Fitch practice field, so that's the one that's next to the stadium, right?
We have the main stadium field, the new synthetic turf field down the hill, and then the practice field, the existing grass field that's to the south of the
I'm
field.
just wondering if the shot put circle, the discus circle,
Yeah,
that would all be considered the practice field, or would that be the Fitch?
all part of the stadium.
Okay, just making sure.
Yep. Yep. Even though that's where they reside,
Yes.
that's
okay.
not how that ranked out. Yep.
Great. It can't be turned.
The most needed amenity of the 34 respondents we got, the summary was lights, field house, Fitch Stadium. All of those were pretty obvious, especially based on the last one. ADA Title IX conformance, which was a big thing that we've heard about, and then restrooms. So we don't have restrooms basically anywhere, and that's a problem. Interestingly, and then we asked for the least needed amenity, and we got 16 responses with no consensus. Everything, somebody who doesn't like soccer said we don't need soccer. Somebody said we don't need softball. Somebody said baseball. So basically one of everything was the least needed, which I think is also telling, right? That there wasn't one type of amenity that the public that was here that night really felt was an unnecessary thing. We then asked if people understood the need for the new facilities. 32 yes, 0 no. We then asked if you would support funding for new facilities. 29 yes, 0 no, and we also left in there for partial for people that said yes, but it's not quite an open page checkbook, right? We want to be able to know what it's going to cost before we say 100% yes. So then I'm going to run through the plans pretty quickly. I think everybody here has seen these plans before, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time reiterating. I'll try to point out the new stuff as I go through. Mostly for Fitch, not a tremendous amount of changes, just little tweaks here and there. Again, we have new ADA, code compliant ADA parking, a new gathering space to be able to let people arrive and start working through the site, new restroom facility to host everything that happens at the top of the hill, softball, tennis, baseball, now have a bathroom facility. They don't have to rely on the school being open to go inside. And we have accessible pathways to get to all of those different amenities. Moving over the new softball field, the decision was made by the committee to make this a synthetic turf softball field so that it's usable for year-round activity. Locationally, it hasn't changed. We still have all the same amenities from the press box, the bleachers, the dugouts, the batting cages, the bullpens. It is a 220-foot outfield at the moment with a 10-foot outfield ring. We've talked about the grading. We have to work our way down the hill a little bit and then fill out here. The parking lot currently comes down and loops around here, so we lose part of the parking as we work on the circulation back here, but we're able to add parking spaces down the hill, so we actually net 17 additional spaces, even though we're relocating some from up here. Working down the hill, we have the new arrival area at the main stadium, so all the new guest parking, handicap parking, areas for officials to be able to park and people to drop off and pick up at the main gate. The main gate now has ticketing, has restroom facilities to either side, has a new concession building, and kind of a main arrival area that we could put home of the Falcons. You could really make that a place of arrival for everybody as they come in. Field house, as we've talked about, needs significant amount of work. We are proposing to go with the plan of renovating the existing field house and then putting an addition on it that's actually bigger than the existing field house beside it. So you have both men's and women's bathrooms, as well as a gender neutral bathroom, locker rooms for both, coaches' rooms, trainers' rooms, all the necessary amenities. And then this would be a new storage facility for all the track and field equipment, for the football equipment. And it is located down here, close to the pits, so the biggest mats, high jump and pole vault, are easy to get into storage as opposed to on the opposite side of the field. And I'll just point out the walkway all the way around. This is like a cart path for vehicles to be able to bring in maintenance equipment and things like that to get into the facility. and then the pathway down below. Zooming out, we've got a new synthetic turf field, fits all of the sports. There's a bunch of different types of alignments. We've picked the one as wide as we can go and still fit within the hillside that we have to do it. Complete new bleacher system. This holds about 4,000 people. It's 3,900 currently, which is more than what Fitch has currently with the existing home and away bleachers that are there. New press box up top that is now ADA accessible from the uphill side. So if we have people going into the press box that can't climb all the way up the entire set of bleachers just to get in the press box, it is now accessible from the backside. All new throwing amenities within the field, lights obviously, and then down to the south we have a new renovated grass field and all new throwing amenities down there as well. We've moved the throwing areas around a little bit to get better space for them, as well as be able to create permanent areas for each of them that the permanent features don't overlap onto the practice space for football. The lower field now, this is a brand new field down the hill from Fitch. This is about 30 feet in elevation change down the hill. We terrace our way down. Full synthetic field, lined for all sports. Could be for practice, couldn't be for games. You could have a varsity and a JV going on at the same time. Or if we've talked about, there could be times when you have one field sport up here, the team that normally practices here can now be practicing down there while a game's going on up above. We do have bleachers and a scoreboard down there, so it's possible to run simultaneous games if necessary. And that's the very quick summary on Fitch. Jumping into Claude Chester, removal of the school, which is right about in this area. The main changes that we've made here from the public presentation is we heard from youth football that they now need to practice on a 100-yard field instead of the 80-yard field. So we've lengthened these fields. We've had to move everything down here to accommodate that extra length. The parking lot kind of shifted and changed just ever so slightly. We've moved where we're putting accessible parking and things like that. But minor tweaks through here. Again, programmatically looks very similar to what we presented before, but there's just been tweaks of 20 feet here, 20 feet there to make everything accommodate. Additionally, we also heard or discussed from the committee that these fields would both go to synthetic. Since there was a demand from the public to have more synthetic turf, that this could then be used year round. And when we started talking about that, if these are both synthetic, wouldn't it be great if youth softball or youth baseball had a place to be able to play on those as well? And so you can see the outline here where we can actually use the ball net that's along the backside of the field. Could be the corner of a backstop net. We'd extend it down here so there's a backstop net on that side. And it's lined so that you could be able to have practice out there. This would not be games or anything like that, but in early, late spring, inclement weather, there's the ability that now youth ball has a place to play that on a surface that they wouldn't be able to if it's a clay infield and things like that. Yep.
So you said that it extended from 80 to 100 feet?
80 to 100 yards. Yep. Yep.
And that, if I'm correct, I'm just not thinking properly. So that's in terms of soccer, those are U15 fields?
Full size, absolutely. Both of them.
And then I'm curious to see what size that lower one.
Did I bring it with me?
I know there's a range for all of the.
There is, yeah. It is about a 200 by 200 foot field. So it's about, we try to get close to that half size field, which you typically do when you run them the opposite direction. So go to the next. And then Sutton Park, again, transitioning from a youth field and an adult softball field to a high school baseball, high school softball. Those have pretty much stayed the same. The parking stayed very similar. What we heard from youth baseball was that they would like to have the ability in the future, as I zoom in here, the future to be able to have an interior space, right? A building that they could go and practice in and things like that. So That would be funded by them at some point in the future, but we wanted to make room to accommodate it now. So we've shifted things around here within all those amenities, pulled the bathroom concession building forward so that that can be here. Everything can be built in phase one and still look like it's important, where it's meant to be. And then in the future, they can come and build the size of building they're hoping to be able to put in there. And maybe everything funnels in through that new bathroom building, but that can accommodate that in the future. But otherwise, field stayed the same. We just moved some of the amenities around. So those are the plan changes we've made. Now costs. So this is Fitch. And I'll just run right through everything. So site amenities. Site amenities are everything kind of shaded in what has a light white over it. That includes the grading, the sidewalks, the parking areas, the new driveways. There's a lot of work that happens around all of the actual amenities, and we've lumped that all into what we're calling site amenities. That right now is budgeted to be about $6.2 million in just site amenities. The restroom building up here at the top of the hill, $323,000. The softball field with synthetic turf on it is just over $2.8 million. The field house renovated and addition comes in at about $8.8 million. The multi-use field down here, by the time we do all the grading and everything associated with that, comes in at about $6.4 million. And then the completely new renovated track, the new buildings that go with it, the bleachers, all the throwing area, new field down below is about $12.6 million. So all in, that's about $37 million worth of work at Fitch. For Claude Chester, we have the school demolition first. That's about $2 million to remove that school. The field house there, we're calling the field house, the bathroom storage building, about almost $900,000. The two multi-use fields, again, with synthetic turf on them, the ball nets and all the amenities to go with them, is about $6.3 million. And then all the site amenities, the new driveway, curbing, sidewalks, all the trees, the walking paths, the playground, everything else out and around it comes in at about $3.7 million. So all in for Claude Chester, that's $13 million for the work at that park. And then Sutton Field, again, site amenities, the parking, the walkways, the trees, the surroundings, $1.5 million. The softball field, just about $1.7 million. And I'll note that these are both natural grass. Neither one of these are synthetic. So that's why this is a lower number. But softball, 1.7. The concessions restroom building, $400,000. The training, as I mentioned, by others. And then on baseball at about $2.8 million. So all in there, that's about $6.4 million for Sutton Park. So kind of the last things wrapping up. I've got a handout for you. We're interested in your appetite for funding, right? So all in, the total cost, if we were to do all three of those projects right now, is $56.4 million. That's where we're estimating right now. What I will say is we know there's going to be expenses on top of that. When you go out to bond, there's financing charges, there's broker fees, there's other fees that get added onto that. But right now, construction and everything right now is $56.4 million. If we were to fund that through a bond over 20 years, that adds up to be about a 2% increase in taxes throughout the 20 years. So for the average house, and I've got this on the handout we can pass around. But right now with the town budget of about $138 million, we're using the mill rate of 26. Right now the town mill rate is about 23, but then you add in fire districts and some of the others, so we're averaging it to about 26. The medium home value is $350,000, means that approximate average tax bill for the medium home in the town is about $9,100 a year. So this would be an additional $186 per year, which to me is about 50 cents a day, a cup of coffee, to do all of the projects that's been needed. Then we're asking if that's too much, if 186 is too much for the next 20 years. Sutton is about a 0.23% increase by itself, or $21 a year. Claude Chester by itself is about a 0.47% increase, or $43 a year. And Fitch by itself is 1.3, or $122 a year. So what we're really quickly asking is, do you support one large project? If not, if you don't think it's necessary or it's too much money, if you wanted one of the three, two of the three, which ones would those be down here? So that's kind of the feedback we're hoping to get tonight, and then obviously any other questions, concerns you have on the overall project. And with that, questions and feedback.
Well, I've already mentioned what my question is a timeline of when we need to mobilize the troops to get this, say for instance, the three system bond going here. We want to plan ahead. Obviously, we missed the November rollout, this past year, but
Yep.
if we wanted to aim for this coming year, when do we need to mobilize the troops?
We're working on that right now.
Okay, so that's something you'll have.
That's the next, so we're presenting this to the town council, we believe, in about 2 weeks. So we'll run through the costs with them, then we're presenting to the Board of Ed to run through all the same stuff with them. We need both of their support, obviously.
So should we need to be at those meetings?
If you would like to be at those meetings, great, absolutely. And the first town council is when they're gonna be getting the information and digesting, and then I'm guessing at some point they're putting it on their agenda after that to start talking about action, referendum funding and all those sorts of things. And from what I remember when we talked about it, it was about a 3 or 4 month required lead time to get on a referendum, right? So that's, we're in a good place right now if we're looking for a November referendum, but we can't wait around for 5 or 6 months and then get going because we'll miss it.
Yeah, no, our main concern, this has needed to be done for so long. That honestly, anybody who has a problem with the funding, to me, is just really missing the mark, because the amount of money we'd pay for a lawsuit for a Title IX and ADA would far exceed this.
I think all you have to do is walk up.
She went and walked at the track and went, oh my
I
God.
went up there with my family and we were like, oh, she's only in middle school, we're not in high school yet. So
But it won't be
I
long.
hadn't really been there.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that field house is like.
Did you get to go in the field house?
If you
Did
did,
you get to go in the field house at all?
It's
Can you
hor,
go in
it's,
there?
You
the
can. Oh,
ceilings
yeah, it's
are
used.
falling down.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like-
You don't want to go
You
in,
really
but
don't.
you get more of a flavor inside than you do the
But
outside.
flavor is literally you smell, you taste.
Tell me
Our
when you
office
get
is
some
in there,
pictures
so.
When you go
Yes.
to the, because like that's a poster child for please help
Yeah.
this cause.
Yeah.
But do you, to Lacey's point, do you think it would be really beneficial for track and field, soccer, for instance? Everybody's really busy right now, so, they can't come to these meetings even. So I'm the representative for soccer, and I'm sharing it with them, but like for town soccer. But when is it necessary for us to have more bodies there,
Right,
including children?
right.
She's here tonight because I didn't have a sitter, but, we've got some support, but we just need to know
And there's a
when.
lot more. It's just that we need to know who we need to push,
Like-
when.
Chad said we're pretty sure that we're on the council agenda for the 28th, so in 2 weeks. I would expect that evening just to be a presentation, and then as Chad mentioned, we'll also be going to the Board of Ed. Last night, Chad made a presentation to a number of high school coaches, and understandably, the feedback was quite positive. But we would need to go to the Board of Ed because this is, Fitch High School is a big part of the Board of Ed. And then, you don't have to go to a meeting. Letters to the council. I think going to meetings is much more impactful. And bringing kids there and having them speak, I can just speak to one example. probably 3 years ago, there was 15 or so skateboarders that showed up. Yeah. So,
Yes.
okay, so, and the town listened to what they said. And, we're committing over $4 million to improvements to the skate park and Sutton Park. So,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
I think exactly what you're saying is like if the 28th council agenda is just presentation, then that's not worth rallying our troops because our troops only have small amounts of time.
Right.
If they devote time not needed, then we may lose them. So
Right.
that's why I'm asking specifically. So thank you for that.
yeah, so I think after the presentation, there'll be a number of opportunities to, approach the council, either at a council meeting or, like I said, just sending an impassioned letter to the council, and all of those get recorded into the meeting.
Is it legit for you to spell that out, or is that not? Because you can't really advocate in your capacity. I mean, could you, like, for instance, tonight, I had the flyer that was sent to me, and I sent it out to people, so they knew what was going on. And I talked to people, and we decided I would be the person that would come tonight. And I was just wondering if there was a way that you could list those things out with bullet points, as that like this is when we need to, these I don't know if it's allowed, but if it's these are council meetings, these are
Right.
time to write letters, these are something along those lines spelled out very simply would be
Seems
really
like-
great.
But we could probably work that out.
So
I mean, we could figure it out if you can't,
no, it's not. It doesn't get tricky until referendum time.
okay.
At this point, what I would say is once we know the schedule, we believe we're on the 28th, we'll have a discussion about what the agenda looks like for the 28th and if that's an appropriate time. And if not, what next meeting would be the appropriate time. And then we'll get the agenda for Board of Ed and be happy to share that with people so people know when those hearings are happening and can either send in letters of support or be there in person to advocate for the project on top of it. And I think advocating at both the town council and at Board of Ed are both going to be important, and then eventually at RTM, because RTM is actually one of the other ones. They've asked us to do a presentation. They obviously control the purse strings as well. So those three organizations will definitely need public support to ensure this is what the people want.
Because some of those meetings go on forever, so
Yeah.
if we are bringing children, we need to plan ahead.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
But we want to support.
the good thing is they always have a public to be heard section first, so you don't get so you don't get drawn into some of the other parts of the council meetings.
Okay, thank you.
So the BOE, we don't know when that meeting will be, like when we'll be on the agenda.
Not yet.
Would it be appropriate for us to reach out to members of the Board of Education, like just as far as like our interest, our desire, and all of that, like before preemptively, or
I think it's totally acceptable, right? I think the
because we
board.
have hundreds of, we have over 100 kids in track and field, and
Right.
it's like I just want to make sure that when we have them do things, that it's gonna be something worthwhile
Yeah.
for them, because they're going, can this happen sooner? Like,
Right.
can we get people are very eager. I was just at Fitch at the basketball game, the middle school, and the parents who graduated with me, and they're going, we needed this 20 years ago, but let's just vote. It's people are very eager to get this going.
And can we do some sort of, is there other informational sessions that we can do for people that don't have children, that aren't getting the importance of these, maybe they don't understand the importance of these fields? Are there other ways that we could outreach to maybe retirees, or I'm not sure.
We can certainly try, right? Part of what we do want to do is have as much public input as possible, get as much people involved as possible. During the, if the town council and the RTM vote to go through the referendum process, then everybody gets mailed information. That information is what is subject to making sure that it's not advocating one way or the other, but providing information. But it can provide information on doing and not doing, right?
And lawsuits.
And yes, so there's going to be some of that has to be figured out.
Because it needs
I think the hard part we've had is getting people that might not be engaged
Right, that's what I.
to engage, right? And all the athletics, different sports groups have been very engaged through the process.
Yeah.
People that haven't been, and we put it out through Facebook, it goes out through town council agenda meetings. We can work on getting another article in the paper to try to get that out there and make sure there's an understanding of the need other than just a really big ticket.
Like
Is there-
every other town has done this.
Yeah, community programming or
We're
social
behind.
media, is there any video footage of, aerial or something created by the high school students or something like
Actually,
that?
I think we would have an easy time getting the high school students to show exactly what we're talking about.
Well, I think that might, again, when it comes to some of those meetings, right,
They'll show
that'd be
you.
great to have students that have to use those locker rooms or
Right.
students that don't have access to
Don't
any
have
locker
any locker
rooms
rooms.
to show up and be able to talk about that in person
'Cause there
is
is-
convincing.
I mean, sadly, there is a disconnect between
Yeah.
these informational meetings, which are great, but clearly we don't have a lot of people here, and what really needs to be done.
Right.
And, sometimes I'll sit in on some of your meetings and understand that way. But it has taken a little bit of time, because I didn't grow up here, to understand the full aspect of it. And there's just got to be maybe better ways of marketing it, possibly.
I would love to, and if you have any ideas, we're very open to them. I always use a reference as one of my neighbors had no idea we went through a referendum and decided to build a new school. The school had been open for 4 years before he knew there was a school, even though you drive by the school.
Yeah.
So it's funny how the information doesn't get to everybody all the time. So any help we can get would be great.
Do you have a marketing person that's involved in this crusade?
I doubt the town
Not
is paying
fully
more.
not fully committed to this project. The department does have had a community outreach coordinator. He's moved on to an even more exciting position. We are looking to fill this position, but the process takes a while. And that promoting this project moving forward will be one of their priorities, but they have a lot.
I'm sorry that I'm coming up with all these questions. Would it be worth investing some money into that? Because I mean, it pays dividends to have a marketer to get your message out there if this is something that you really want supported.
Right.
I mean, I think, is it possible you could figure that cost in to the package? Or is
You
that?
gotta get on the mic. Pat's like,
Yeah, this is being streamed.
Okay.
They can't hear you.
Well, I was going to say we could certainly explore that possibility. Yeah, I mean,
the-
I think Chad and I could have a discussion kind of offline.
I think it might be worthwhile.
Yeah.
Because I do feel a disconnect with the community, and I think it's through marketing.
So is that a position that's out right now, that's open?
The community outreach coordinator position for the Parks and Recreation Department, it isn't for the entire town.
Yeah.
It has closed, and we're
Okay, so you've got candidates.
yes,
in
we
the
have
process.
we
I
have
was just
yes
trying to
yes we have 8
see where
candidates.
you were in that process.
Yes,
that's all.
yeah, we have 8 candidates,
Cool.
and hopefully the
Good.
week after next, we'll do our first round of interviews. Second round,
That's good.
it will be March probably before we have somebody on board.
Yeah, but you're already that far along. It's not that it's like we're casting the net right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
no,
better
we
that we're closer.
we threw the net out, we've pulled it in, and we've got 8.
Good. Did you guys build in stuff that could be cut if needed, if people want to be? I really hope people don't want to cut corners, because generally that never works out well.
I would agree. I mean, I'll say yes and no,
Okay.
right? There's always a little bit. There's things like at Fitch, the first thing in my mind is the size of the bleachers, right? At 4,000 people, that's a very large bleacher set. It's larger than a lot. However, that's about what Fitch has currently between the home and away sides. So it's a discussion to be had. It could be reduced some. It can't go away, right? There's
Right,
other things
right.
where we might be able to, shave some sidewalk, do some things, have some what we call value engineering. But on the other hand, we are not starting with a gold-plated plan either. We didn't shoot
Right.
for the highest, best, greatest, most expensive of every single thing. We put in the amenities that should be there,
Right.
that haven't been there for a long time. And that's where we're trying to go to the public with, this is really what the need is and not looking for a lot more than that.
Okay, yeah.
So
Well-
yes, some value engineering, but
Yeah.
it's not going to be half or anything like that. We can't have that kind of expectation.
With those, so the turf fields would be better with the rain, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Now the ones down in Sutton Park, is that below the floodplain?
The Sutton Park needs to be grassed because we are in a floodplain down there. We wouldn't want any of the floods to come up and take
Okay.
out all the infill and wash it downstream.
What about Claude Chester? Just because I've been watching
Claude-
that fill in with water
Yeah.
since I was a kid.
Claude Chester is out of the flood zone, floodway. We know there are some drainage issues down
Okay.
there.
But that would be part of it.
Yep, the benefit we have there is that, if you've driven by 117, most of the field out here is actually lower than the roadway is. And so we have room to actually fill that in with open graded gravel that becomes stormwater retention. So we kind of get a twofer in that we can store stormwater under the fields
Yep.
while we lift the fields up to the elevation we need to keep them dry.
That's excellent. Yeah. Just because that, and I mean, I know there was discussion at one point about room for an aquatic center at some point at Claude Chester. I was just curious if that space was still being held or whatever. I'm impartial, but
Yeah, we've left that. That's what this small
Okay.
youth little area is.
Okay.
It did get a little smaller with the size of the fields, but we've left that at the moment so that if it's a splash pad, if it's an aquatic center, that is still something we hear a lot that the public
Yeah.
really wants. So we've kind of left a placeholder if this is the location for it to go in the future.
cool. All right. I was just curious because I know that was a concern for some people.
Yep.
Nice.
Can I ask, this is silly because it's really just lining question, but now with Claude Chester with two large full-size, I'm looking at it from the soccer fields.
Yep.
And then you've got full-size soccer fields up at the high school. And you have one of the smaller size, for town soccer, you need the 7x7,
Yep.
a U10, a U12, and a U15 field. Are you looking at the U15 fields, say, at Claude Chester to be also used as U12 and then also going sideways for U10 as well? Okay, so you're looking at all those
Yep.
size ranges. I'm just thinking of, say, Stonington. You go over there to play soccer, or East Lyme. They have designated fields for each age group.
Yep.
And it's lovely because they never have to move their goals except when they're mowing and lining.
Yep.
And that would be great.
Yep.
I wanted to make sure in particular that you weren't leaving out the U12 size because that is where we're bottlenecked in this town at Pequannock, is that we often only have one U12 field
Yep.
or we trade the U12 for a U15 and we don't always.
Yep. No, we have been thinking about it. We're showing it as the largest field possible.
Okay, great.
Right. And then as we get down the road past referendum and into details and worried about exactly what lines, what colors, what sizes. And one of the things we advocate quite a bit and talked about with the coaches last night even was for some of the fields that might not be used as often, you can still paint on synthetic turf. You just use a different type of paint. So there could be times to be able to stripe different fields, different orientations and things like that, and not have it as a permanent stripe all the time.
I was a little worried when you mentioned that with the baseball practice
Yep.
at Claude Chester, because that's a lot of lining. I mean, when you've got football, soccer, lacrosse, and then baseball, it's super
Yep.
confusing.
Yep, so
So-
that'd be one that we would imagine would probably be a temporary line. You paint it on and it washes off over time, as opposed to a true synthetic line where it's the turf color that you're cutting into the turf and it's permanent. But those are discussions that we need to have in those level of details. Right now, we're making sure we have the size to be able to accommodate them.
And do you think when you go to these meetings that they are going to hammer you with how you're going to be able to, for maintenance costs? I don't mean just maintenance and upkeep of the actual physical fields themselves. I mean personnel. Is that going to be? Are you guys prepared to answer questions on that? Not for me, but I meant if you go to a referendum.
Yeah, that would be built into the calculations
Okay.
of the overall cost, beyond construction. Like okay, yeah, we're going to need 2 more staff people to, maintain these fields, because both types of fields require maintenance.
Yeah.
And I said 2, and I just threw that out. So whoever's listening, don't hold me to 2. I don't know what that number is yet, but we'll have to.
Yeah.
And a lot of that will depend on, what the elected officials decide. They may say, you know what, we're only comfortable with going out for referendum for one of these kind of 3 projects, and that's kind of why it was all broken up, so that that choice, that's an option. Yes.
And Fitch obviously would stay with the Board of Ed and
Can you speak up?
sorry, Fitch would stay with the Board of Ed, and Claude, Chester, and Sutton would remain with Parks and Rec under those jurisdictions, or does it change?
Yeah, no, I don't think that would change, although Parks and Recreation does do some work right now at the high school. So
Yeah, I
we
know.
would have to kind of
Negotiate.
figure that out too. Like,
And that's the case in other towns as well.
Yeah, yeah.
This is also true, I coach in New London, this is true in East Lyme. There's a lot of shared staff between Parks and Rec.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
School fields, you know.
I
Go
just
ahead.
wanted to make sure that you prepared to debate those. I mean, that's a given.
Oh, yeah, we fully
Question.
anticipate those
Okay.
questions, and we'll have answers.
Great.
Has anybody looked at how much income we're going to be bringing in based on all of these increased offerings?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, and, that's not the primary goal here.
No,
The
but at
primary
the
goal
same
was to meet
time.
the fundamental needs of the community.
Yes, absolutely.
But there was a group that did a study 2017, and do you remember the numbers that were generated?
It was in the millions.
Yeah.
So there is, yeah,
There was an economic development group, Camoin Associates, that did the economic impact study of doing fields for running tournament play. And so that's part of why we were focused on Claude Chester here. You now have 5 fields you could run tournament play. Right up the hill, you have now 3 more fields, or 4 if you count the middle school field. So there is the possibility for tournament play between all those field complexes.
Right.
The income to the town isn't as substantial. We want the income if those are being rented by an outside facility. There will be some income to obviously pay for staff and maintenance and things like that and recoup some costs. The real economic impact of running an event like that is the dollars brought in that people spend while they're here for the
Correct.
weekend. We've been advocating for a long time what's called destination recreation.
Correct.
Travel sports are a big
Yes.
deal. Everybody's doing it. But if there's a tournament, going to Mystic, Connecticut for a tournament sounds a little bit more appealing than going to somewhere you've never heard of in the middle of Maine, perhaps, right? And so use the Mystic destination to be able to host and run tournaments. And then, it was in the neighborhood of like $3 million of economic impact to the, southeastern Connecticut region for running events here. Yeah.
Right. And I guess, and I've lived as a college coach in the middle of Pennsylvania, and we would raise upwards of 20 grand having 100 schools come to a track meet. We have 2 tracks within, hailing distance of each other. There's no school in the state that has that. There are things that we could do that would make so much money because it's Mystic. We're already a destination. And I just spoke with Parks and Rec because I'm doing camps. And one of the things that, I'm going to be using when I market is that people can come and vacation in Mystic, and then they can come to my throwing camp in the afternoon at 5 p.m. People come here for vacation anyway. There's a lot of things that really lend, like this could really support so much growth in our community. And I really think it's important for us to highlight that, because leagues also rent stuff out. You'll have like all these, there are brands where they go to this place and that place and they'll rent out facilities. And once we have facilities worth renting, then we can step up. But, it's just, until we do this stuff, we're really so far behind all of our neighbors. It's just, it's embarrassing.
Yep. So I would agree, and as Mark pointed out, the first and foremost, we're trying to
Yeah.
meet the need, right? We have
Right.
not met the need for decades. So first is to get to meet the needs of the youth and adults, because plenty of adults use this too, have the facilities that we need to have in town. And then when there's excess time, summertime, things like that, we can obviously capitalize on that if possible.
Yeah, speaking of which,
I was gonna say, in this scenario, if you can strike a deal with Grasso, now you've got two full track fields 500 feet apart, so you've got,
Right.
as long as
We could
cooperate with them,
host
you could have something like you mentioned.
And there's nothing like that in the state anywhere. There's even for, we could actually possibly host state meets, which
Yep.
would be excellent. That's tons of money. The teams of hundreds, it's just,
Yep.
everybody wins in those scenarios. And I mean, it's not just for track, all of this. I really think that this is such a perfect recreation destination.
Yep. We heard the same thing even from the marching band,
Right.
right? That they
Oh,
want
God,
to,
yeah.
have been asked to host major national events, but we can't because we don't have synthetic turf.
Right.
You put this in where you have that many turf fields within proximity, and the level of tournaments you can host goes up significantly.
Are there any of the large employers that have been willing to consider sponsoring some of this?
Good question. There has been some reach out. Normally, the answer has been, a little bit, but not a lot. It's enough to put a name on a sign, basically. One of the major employers in town is doing a little bit more outreach, trying to get their name on some things. But it's in the neighborhood of, buying press boxes and amenities and things like that. So that's still good. We definitely want to work with them and do as much as we can. But there hasn't been, we don't want to, nobody has stepped up and said, here's my name on X field for $6 million at this point.
And that may be something that the public can also create some pressure
Perhaps.
on. Well, I mean, we have a lot of students whose parents work at all these major employers, and their kids and the families want better facilities. It's just, this is something that happens in a lot of areas with large employers, is that they sponsor things.
Yep. I would say the thing that's a little unique in Connecticut, especially, is how small all the little towns are.
Yeah.
And so some of the things we've had with like major employers, the two biggest in town, is their family live not just in Groton and in town. So their family lives throughout southeastern Connecticut and into Rhode Island. And so convincing one organization that they should put a lot of money into one town when they might have people living in a lot of towns is a little different than in some Midwestern towns where you have a town that the employer's completely within, and the funding is a little bit simpler.
But it could be argued that a lot of those families, if we had these upgrades, would.
Oh, absolutely.
Groton.
Right. We heard from plenty of people that said, I moved to not Groton, one of the
Because of
adjoining
this.
towns, because of facilities like this.
And that's a really important message as well.
have you thought about bringing this presentation to places like, I don't know if it's allowed, but Pfizer or EB, and actually, rather than inviting the public to come because they don't, is it possible to go out and go into different parts of the community? I mean, Yukon.
UConn could.
So we have had some contact with UConn's athletic department, not for this particularly, but when we were doing the field study, the needs analysis, because UConn uses some of the fields in town.
Right.
And then also I will say we've had contact with like the EB Athletic Club because they use some of the fields. I don't think we've had any with Pfizer.
Because they all have adult leagues.
Yes,
Correct.
softball, everything.
I know they have the soccer leagues.
Right.
And I think that your presentation is very, attention grabbing, because you answer a lot of questions, especially about feasibility and safety of turf and things like that. I mean, before I even had a chance to ask questions at the previous meetings, you addressed it all. So I think it might be worth doing some targeted outreach to give this presentation to different organizations within our community that use fields for enlightenment and educational purposes.
Or do they pay for the fields? Do they pay to use them?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's
But we can certainly reach out to those contacts that
great.
coordinate between those groups and see if they'd be interested in having the
Yeah,
presentation given to them.
Yeah,
I would do that.
because there's continuity also. I was gonna ask, is there room for, like, all the throwing is going on one corner down there, right? But is there room for a shed for storage there?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, that was one of the questions we talked about with coaches last night. Actually,
Okay.
was I know you right now have some storage down here.
Yeah.
Yep. And yes, we're putting the main shed up there, but man, it'd be really nice to have something down here to kind of
Yes.
deal with some other stuff too.
Yes.
So yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
Any other questions, comments?
I just wanted to, I'll make sure I get the mic so I can hear.
Good.
So I'm wearing a few different hats here tonight. I'm Eric Whitman. I'm here officially for the Southern London County Mutiny Youth Spring Football. I'm also the only fall GMF Falcons staff in attendance here, so I'm sure some of them are probably online, but I guess I'll kind of address some of the code things here. First question is what becomes of, when they're doing this construction, how long are the fields going to be out of commission? Because that's GMF's primary practice field as it is for the Spring Lacrosse League. So if we're going to start tearing that up, how long is it going to be out of commission and where are we going to go for?
Good
these other-
questions.
Yes, we will have that.
My short answer is I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Normally, I would say we can get a full field construction in one season, right? So we would miss, a fall or a spring, and that bleeds into the summer, obviously, right? The most construction we can get done in the summer, obviously, the better and the least impactful. But it'll depend on referendum timing, funding, bidding, all those sorts of things, when the project can start. And winter conditions will have an effect on that also. But I would expect that, there'll be a season of that field time that we'll miss. I don't know which one yet or how long that'll go. And we'll have to look at how that moves around. Same thing was true when the field at the community center was redone, and it displaced field sports for a season, actually it was a couple of seasons. Yeah.
It's natural and gave it a whole
I mean, and keep in mind that
Right.
like all of our high school teams will have to deal with not having that too.
Right. And one thing we have had a discussion of the committees talked about is, it's one thing to say if the referendum goes and passes and we fund all of this and we go to start building it, there will be a significant discussion about how does all of this get phased in just during construction, right? Because if you came out here and bulldozed all of this on day one, then we're going to be short of a whole lot of recreational assets right away. So there'll be a discussion about, does this happen before this, or does this and then that and then these, so that we can move teams around in the field or around the town basically for that year of construction. There will be impacts. We'll try to minimize it as much as possible.
So the first thing that happens with the Clyde Chester property is the school's got to go.
School's
I know
gotta go.
I don't know what the exact number, there's a period of time when you tear down a building that you can't touch the ground under it until you do your
Right.
surveys and stuff, I know.
Yep, and there's some environmental stuff that we have to deal with that building coming down, so yeah, it'll be off.
I know that delayed Grasso putting the new stadium in, delayed parking lots at EB when we've taken down some places
Yep.
there. Getting back on topic here, so is the Clyde Chester property, is that still in the part of area where we can't have any lights?
We have added lights to the field.
Okay,
Both fields have lights.
and
And I'll note, because can we have lights or can we not have lights? We've just gotten approved lights right outside here, right? So at the hockey rink and future pickleball courts, the lights are up, athletic field lights there. So that's right across the street from Clyde Chester.
And Pequannock Plains, that's still a no light zone because it's residential or?
Right now, I would say Pequannock Plains, although people have had a hard time finding the document, there's been lots of memory about the fact that was always not to be lit. My recommendation at this point, if this all passes and this is going to be built, I don't think you'll need lights on Pequannock Plains, and I wouldn't recommend it because lighting a grass field puts a whole lot of pressure on a grass field. The grass needs time to be able to recover before it gets trampled again the following day. So synthetic turf works really well with lit fields because it doesn't need to rest. So my hope would be that between, those 4 new synthetic turf fields, that there'd be enough field space and time to be able to have that be the use. If for some reason we get to a point and all this is built and the lights are on and there's still not enough time, then we cross that path and look to light Pequannock Plains. And or change one of the fields to synthetic at the same time.
I know running up against daylight has been a thing that's hampered my community spring league, that we can't practice, not just, we can't put portable lights up, because we were told
Correct.
no.
Yep.
Neighbors would complain.
Yep.
And we can't practice right up to dark, because then you have liability that, Parks and Rec doesn't want any part of.
Right.
These are all questions that were asked back in 2020 when we put this program together, coming out of COVID. As far as Pequannock Plains, what happens with the fields there, and more our own end of thing, what happens with the football field? We've got Falcons have the field house there, the concession stand is there,
It all stays.
so that all stays there.
Yep. The
No,
plan-
I'm not sure if the plan is to move to that field or just have access to that field while we still play on the existing grass.
Right, you'll have both, is the plan right now. Yeah, right now by the numbers that we calculate, you'll need both, is my guess, based on usage numbers. And so we're not planning for anything to change at Pequannock Plains.
Because as it gets darker and playoffs come about for the fall, we have to move over to the city, go to Washington Park, use the lights, and tear up the grass baseball field there for the end of season, and then longer, because obviously we're pretty good. We constantly make playoffs, so we're playing into November typically. So
Yeah,
people have to drive, people have to move.
Yep.
This is taking care of that, right?
yep,
There's a big need there. The other thing was, the expansion. I don't know if that's a completely different thing, but we're supposed to be, I guess, lengthening the current football field there to 100 yards to accommodate because Groton hosts the Super Bowl for the conference this year. And I know this is probably out of this project's scope here. I was not sure if there's any update on what's happening with that.
the plan I've heard that
Yeah,
the goalposts are being moved, is that correct?
Right. One of the goalposts is being moved in order to get that additional 20 yards. And that would be the goalpost to the north. Yes.
Yeah, there's a little worry there. I mean, I've tracked this out when I was doing the high school thing, when we were doing the 19U thing. The biggest question over there is coming up close to the irrigation boxes, because I know that puts that goalpost right smack dab in the middle where the irrigation box is on that side there. So you may have to move it a little bit one way or the other, but if we're talking one. New goalposts, that's going to be, that's Falcon's responsibility then to buy those? Is that a shared responsibility?
At this point, that's a Falcon responsibility. Yep.
So I know there is an effort to try to fund those.
Yeah.
I don't know where that is. I'm not on any of those
Right.
committees.
Is this Washington
Yeah.
Park?
No, Pequannock Plains. Yeah.
So basically, if we can move one, because there is room there, we've mapped it out. So,
Yep.
so we move one and we can host. The other question comes to that is late in the season, when do we start the games? Because you're talking playing 3 games in a row, and now we've even asked the question like, are portable lights an option to come in as far as hosting that event? Or would they even allow that?
Right. Yeah, I think this is, conversation's getting a little outside of the scope of the rest of this meeting, so, yeah.
In the football thing, I mean, and the only thing I'd add for the other, at least from the spring football program thing there is, we've had a huge history of issues with trying to fit into the schedule with all these things here. So I'm happy to go to these council meetings and start representing that program to say it's just a nightmare for a newer organization to try finding their way onto the schedule for the fields that we've got now.
Yeah, well, I think other youth sports administrators would say it's a nightmare no matter what sport it is. Nobody can get enough field time, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So you're preaching to the choir, but yeah, no, we hear you.
But it would be good to tell the council.
Yes.
Yeah,
I definitely want to know when this is there so I can come in there and run my mouth a little bit too. For sure.
okay.
Anything else?
Can I just say excellent questions tonight and comments, really. No, I sincerely mean that. It's great feedback.
Agreed. Yeah, so with that, I'm done. You can stick around, you can come up and talk, yeah, my job. And we got the boards over there if you want to get up closer and look in more detail. But thank you very much for coming, appreciate it. Continue to spread the word through your organizations. We will put the plans up online.
Yes, yeah,
So people can go look at them and or download them and spread them around.
right. And we'll work on better marketing, getting the word out. Yes,
One thing I did think of is there's so many adult pickup leagues, and I participate in them too. And I use all the fields. My husband does frisbee. I play pickup soccer.
yeah,
And that's an untapped resource. Those people are out on the field every single night of the week
right.
using the field.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we could reach out to some of those people and they knew that that there would be the youth sports would be spread out more.
New and better
they're,
fields
They're,
and-
they're using
yeah.
the fields all the time, but we don't always talk about it. And I think that they would be interested in supporting this as well.
Sure, yeah.
So,
And it's going to take all of those groups to
yeah.
push this forward.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you.